Having spent so many years at the top of the sport, the 2022 season of Mercedes will remain one of the most shocking Formula One moments in recent memory. The team suddenly went from a near-unbeatable juggernaut to a wounded giant, and the days of fighting for wins and championships seemed long gone. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell both struggled to get through a race weekend smoothly, with Hamilton in particular looking in significant pain after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, where the porpoising the car suffered appeared at its worst. The seven-time world champion opted to experiment with setups to try and find solutions, and while new teammate Russell did so too to an extent, he continued to mop up top 5 results on a consistent basis as the team worked on their issues. There was still an underlying pace disadvantage to both Ferrari and Red Bull for much of the season though, but Mercedes gradually reeled in their opponents, particularly on race pace, with Hamilton and Russell putting up stronger fights for victories as the year progressed. This ultimately culminated in Russell's first ever race victory at Interlagos, with Hamilton recovering from contact with Max Verstappen to make it a Mercedes 1-2 at the penultimate race of the season, only missing out to Ferrari for second in the constructors' standings by 39 points at the end of a grueling season. The battle to return their car to the front of the grid was one that lasted all season, with the W13's solitary victory coming in the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. With the season now over, work has begun on preparing the troublesome car's successor, but given 2022 saw a massive regulation change, questions are rightly being asked about how competitive fans can expect the W14 to be. Mercedes trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin believes that the knowledge they gained from the 2022 season has put them in good stead to ensure the same problems do not feature in the 2023 car. It's fair to say that by the time you've got to the end of the season, you've raced across a whole range of circuits, you should have pretty much understood all the issues certainly by the end of the year, he said. Whilst we still had some problems with the car that were making us less competitive at some tracks, those were not new problems. Those were problems that we could anticipate and that had been there for quite a while now. The big body of work that's been going on for the last number of months has been to make sure that those issues on the W13 don't get carried into the W14, and we've made good progress there. Now you can see that in some of the later updates, particularly the update that we brought to Austin. They just put us that bit closer to the front, so a lot of our focus was making sure we can develop an update kit and bring it to the track and actually see it translate to performance. Hopefully the culmination of that work will mean that we can get an altogether more competitive package together for next year. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has often suggested the problems with the W13 has set the team back in terms of development, and Shovlin hinted at something similar, saying that they had been focused on the learning side rather than development. It's a funny time of year because you don't know what kind of work your competitors are doing, how well they're progressing, but we've been very focused on the learning side, trying to iron out those issues that we've had with the W13. After the year that we've had, we're never going to go into it saying that we think we'll be fighting back at the front, but we are very, very determined to get back to getting the car on pole position and winning races. We're always excited when developing and launching a new car. It's a good time of year. Lots of work, lots of interests, lots of excitement, but it's going to be tough and we're ready for a fight. Mercedes are entering the 2023 season with arguably their highest ever level of motivation, believing that they have to once again prove themselves, and team strategy director James Vowles said he can feel that around the factory. I think just looking around the factory, you can just see everyone is incredibly motivated by what happened last year, and more importantly by wanting to get back onto that top step and consistently showing the world and other teams that we know how to win, he explained. We want to be back there, and we have an opportunity to get back there across the winter. You have a number of teams that are doing what we're doing, which is every single day scraping for a minute, a millisecond or more. But the reality is that we're in a strong position here in terms of learning that we can build on from last year, and everything I see around is just everyone wanting to win and doing everything they can across the winter to do so. Mercedes driver George Russell expects the team to be in a much stronger position from race 1 in the 2023 Formula One World Championship. The 24-year-old from Norfolk achieved the sole victory this year for Mercedes in the penultimate race at Sao Paulo. Russell finished 4th in the drivers' standings, 2 places and 35 points above teammate Lewis Hamilton. They haven't forgotten how to build a fast race car, said Russell. We just got it wrong this year. George Russell told BBC Radio Norfolk that Mercedes team got the philosophy wrong and the team went down a route which turned out to be the wrong route in terms of the car's design and aerodynamics. Sometimes it takes you a long time to dig yourself out of that hole. Now I feel we've dug ourselves out of that hole and we're building on top of that. We are a step behind Red Bull and Ferrari, and we've got a lot of catching up to do, but we're definitely going to be in a much stronger position from race 1 next year than we were this year. The Silver Arrows struggled with porpoising throughout the first half of the season before failing to earn consistent results despite improving their performances towards the end of the year. But they appear to be full of confidence regarding their hopes of fighting at the front again at the next time of asking. Many of their problems were blamed on the radical construction of their W13 Challenger, which implemented a unique zero sidepods design. But team principal Toto Wolff has already insisted that some painful lessons have been learned as they look ahead to making a fresh start next year. The engine came along really well, and I'm proud of what we achieved there, said Wolff earlier this month. On the chassis side, there were more bad moments than good ones, but the good ones were spectacular like a week ago in Brazil, and they made us feel how good it can be. Now we are just pushing forward for next year. It's rough, it's bad, it's okay to feel like this, but next year we are back. The car is one factor of tasting victory in Formula 1, rivals are the other factor, which actually determines your chances of Grand Prix victories. If we shortlist of the events that has happened till to date, I certainly believe that Mercedes has a huge advantage. First, let's talk about the situation at Ferrari. Ferrari could be running the risk of faltering next year after deciding to sack Mattia Binotto before appointing Frédéric Vasseur as their new man in charge earlier this month. The historic Italian team have now employed 5 different team principals over the last 14 years and continue to lack the stability enjoyed by Mercedes and Red Bull, who have tasted plenty of success under their long-serving bosses over the last few years. Next year will also mark a step into the unknown for Vasseur, who boasts a formidable record at lower levels of motorsport but remains untested at the highest echelons of F1 in spite of his encouraging spell with Alfa Romeo. Ferrari suffered multiple failures at key points throughout the early and mid part of the season, and were forced to turn down their power units to stop them from expiring in the latter races of the year, which Mercedes did not have to endure at any point of the season. All of this happening at Ferrari. When you look at Red Bull, it's an entirely different scenario. Red Bull's biggest concern going into the new season is that of the development penalty they will be forced to work with. As penalty for breaching the cost cap in 2021, the team were handed a deduction in their wind tunnel and CFD allocation. As constructors' champions, Red Bull were already set for a prescribed lower quantity of development time on the sliding scale that has been introduced, with the 10% penalty giving both Mercedes and Ferrari even more of an advantage over Christian Horner's Milton Keynes concern. They will only be allowed 63% of simulations, with Mercedes enjoying a 17% advantage with 80% of a full allocation. That is a sizable development chunk in Mercedes' favor, meaning Red Bull and technical chief Adrian Newey must be sure not to enter any cul-de-sacs and lose any more of their precious allocation in solving the problems that could arise. If there was a single chink the Red Bull armor in 2022, it was the early reliability failures endured by the team. In the Bahrain opener, both Verstappen and Sergio Perez retired in the closing laps, while the world champion also retired from round 3 in Australia. Perez would also take an early bath in Canada as Mercedes were almost bulletproof with just one mechanical DNF through the entire season. That came for Hamilton in the Abu Dhabi finale when the hydraulics packed up on lap 55 of 58 to bring his worst season to a close. Another to add to the Red Bull weakness tally is that, up until Brazil, the Red Bull driver chemistry was rather cordial. But following Verstappen's refusal to let Perez pass to aid his ultimately unsuccessful push for P2 in the Drivers' Championship, relations were stretched to say the least. It stems from Verstappen's belief that Perez crashed on purpose in Monaco qualifying to deny the former a shot at pole, something flatly denied by Perez when asked by media. When you look at the weaknesses Ferrari and Red Bull have, we can figure out why Mercedes has that level of high confidence. For one, there is a firm master and apprentice dynamic between Hamilton and Russell as one passes on all his knowledge and experience to he who will carry the Silver Arrows into the second half of the decade. That being said, Russell is certainly not deferential to Hamilton, and took Mercedes' only pole position at Hungary and win at Brazil of the season. But the relationship is different, with the drivers certainly open to team orders if the situation requires such intervention from the pit wall. Reliability at Mercedes is up like a rock. The only DNF for a reliability from Mercedes came at Abu Dhabi in the 2022 season, and that could have been due to the first lap incident Lewis and Carlos had, riding over the curbs hard. If that is cut off the equation, Mercedes did enjoy the highest reliability rate out of all the 10 teams in Formula 1. And finally, the team is strong, as we are not able to see any form of issues within the Mercedes squad, from team principal to the lowest working mechanical engineer. All are motivated to be back on winning ways. It seems as though everything could fall into place for Mercedes in 2023 if they manage to put things right and their rivals begin to fade away. But only time will tell if it will be enough to give Hamilton, Russell, and Mercedes a fighting chance of winning yet another title. Comment down below on what you think are the chances of Mercedes winning championships yet again, starting from 2023. Thank you for watching our video today, and if you enjoy our content, subscribe to the channel and have that notifications bell turned on to be made aware of our future uploads, as we have plenty coming up during this Formula 1 off-season.